Welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-hosts, FP Santangelo Jr. and Russell Jackman. Vern is on a shoot this morning, so he can't be with us. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a trivia question, and today is baseball numbers. We'll see how well you got your. Yeah, these ones are actually going to be not that hard. I think even Mr. Russell Jackman will get them, and we know he's not the biggest. He's more of a basketball fan, but I think he may even get these questions. All right, so there's a few things that I had on my list. One of them was going to be the Virginia Cavaliers because Vern went there, and he's always wearing a lot of times he's wearing his Virginia Cavaliers hat, and we always have to root for the Cavaliers for him. But he's not with us today. Ja Morant is still away for a few more days. We'll talk about that. Jimmy G. What's that?
It's indefinitely.
Yeah, they think he might come back on Friday, but okay. They think. Yeah, so it'll be very interesting. I want to get your take on that. No more Jimmy G.
The NFL shakeups. My goodness.
A lot of them, yeah. Unfortunately, Bud Grant of the old Vikings coach died at age 95. I have a very quick story about that. Is Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets? Or is that?
We'll see. He had a very cryptic tweet last night.
Okay.
As we're recording this on Tuesday, so.
And let's see what you guys think about Sam Darnold coming to the 49ers. Seems like And then Novak Djokovic still not allowed to play in the U.S. I don't get that. So we'll talk about that when we get back.
What about the World Baseball Classic and how it's shattering ratings records? We're not going to talk about that. That's Sports Econ 101.
Well, okay, we'll bring that up too. They beat Canada by the mercy rule.
And what about the idea that Vince McMahon is trying to get to legalize gambling on wrestling matches?
That'll be a good one to talk about. All right, this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money. Check them out, pacificprivatemoney.com. Very conservative company. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101 will be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with FP Santangelo Jr. and Russell Jackman. FP, start us off. What's going on with this World Baseball Classic? Because they've had that before, but it really didn't get too much traction, didn't it?
Yeah, so last time, in I think it was 2018, Team USA won, right? And we finally started to care about the World Baseball Classic because previously it's during spring training here in the United States, so we don't send our best talent. But now we have Mike Trout on Team USA this year. We have tons of guys, excluding the pitchers. For some reason, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, all those guys didn't want to pitch this year because they're afraid it was going to ruin their season. So the pitching's pretty interesting. But guys, Sports Econ 101, we're talking about this because the viewership is insane, okay? It's actually getting better viewership than last year's World Series by like sixfold, okay? When Japan played Korea in pool play, okay? This is not even an elimination game or anything. Yeah. Pool play. 62 million people tuned in, okay? That's insane. That's compared to 10 million people that tuned into the World Series, okay? That's just, it's like incredible. And what's even more incredible is 46% of households in the entire country of Japan tuned into that game.
Wow.
46%. In comparison to the Super Bowl, only 30% of households tune into the Super Bowl in the United States.
That's amazing. Well, Japan is, ever since literally the barnstorming days of Ruth and Gehrig and all that, when they went and introduced it back in the 30s, to Japan, they just love the sport. And then you had Sadahara in the 60s, hitting 800 home runs and just being the icon of the sport. And they just love baseball.
Yes, they do. It's my understanding that's very similar to the samurai culture. So that's why they took it up in like Storm, right? They see the baseball bat as the sword, and it just really took roots with a lot of cultural aspects they already had there. So it was just like a perfect storm and a perfect marriage. Yeah. But they're crazy about baseball over there. But guys, everywhere in the world right now, the ratings are crazy. I mean, it's crazy in Venezuela, Puerto Rico, of course, the Dominican Republic. Mexico beat Team USA. That was huge. The Mexican ratings were phenomenal. I mean, it's been a great tournament, and everybody cares now for the first time. Team USA is all in with the position players. They just need to start getting pitchers. And I think the pitchers are, for the first time, starting to get upset that they weren't in this because there's just so much passion. They're selling out every single game. There's 50 to 60,000 people at every game. It's awesome. It's really, really, really,
No,
really
it's almost like a mini Olympics, or like you said, it's at break. It's really more like a World Cup type of.
yeah. It's going towards the World Cup. And guys, I have to ask you this:
Yeah.
do you think one day a World Baseball Classic championship is going to mean more than a World Series? Because I do.
I actually do, because in the World Series you only have just the United States and Canada, unless they expand that. No, I actually think you're right. I mean, if it's gotten this much popularity, and I'm thinking maybe because the previous World Classics, they didn't have guys like Mike Trout, right? Especially and I guess a guy like him doesn't really need spring training so much. He's already made the roster.
The big one, guys, is Shohei Ohtani, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Again, put in perspective, the most watched Twitter video from the World Series had 500,000 views, okay? Shohei Ohtani hit a 3-run home run the other day, and it had 6.5 million views. So
right. I love it.
He's literally saving baseball.
Yeah.
He's making it international.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how that affects this year's baseball ratings, for the Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is all great news. And honestly, in a weird way, we want Team USA to lose because we want the international community to really get involved in this and to make it a big deal. So that way it kind of kicks the hornet's nest and Team USA goes, wait a minute. Why aren't we winning this every year again? We need to put our best people out there. So I think this is going to become a bigger deal. And then to add to the point, I think it's going to be bigger than a World Series because it's every 4 years, right? It's not every year like the World Series. So it's going to be more prestigious eventually.
They may, who knows, the Saudis may come up with their own lift tour type.
Hey, anything to help pay the players more, I'm down. So
yeah. Mr. Russell, you've been just listening and taking all this in.
Yeah, well, the timing is right for the World Baseball Classic because it's, baseball hasn't actually kicked in. It's not, playing right now.
Sure.
You don't have the NCAA tournament kicked in yet, although everybody's filling in their brackets, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the NBA is not in its playoff mode. So it kind of is filling in this sort of sports vacuum that there's not, it doesn't have to, football's over. It's sort of hitting that one sort of pocket where there's not a lot of really competitive, meaningful things going on. I mean, yes, the NBA is, people are jockeying for playoff position,
sure,
but it's not exactly like, for a lot of, let's say you're in a city where your team is 15 games out of first place or something like that, or you might not even be making the playoffs. So for a lot of those cities, this is the most competitive thing that's going on. And it is touching a lot of people in ways that like the World Cup does, that, people are thinking back of their own nationalities, and if they have family in Mexico or have family in, I have a friend who is married to a Colombian citizen, so he's carrying the Colombian flag, for the
it reminds me, you're talking about the timing. It's like I had a trivia question on this one time. What are the only 2 days that there's basically no sport going on? And when I'm talking about the major sports, not stuff like cricket that maybe in India is going on
after the All-Star break.
The day before and the day after the All-Star game.
Oh, in July. Okay.
Yeah.
Days in July.
Everything else is pretty much done. So yeah, you're right. The timing, it will be kind of interesting when March Madness really starts in I think 2 days. Then baseball really starts up, and then basketball gets in. Then how long is the baseball classic, the World Classic?
It's only a month because they got to get these guys ready for their regular seasons, right? And even like the Japanese league is about to start up soon, and then the Venezuela baseball leagues and all that stuff. So,
and I think it is good that it doesn't happen every year, so that it does have to build up.
Yep.
They may do it like every 2 years, maybe.
That's what kind of FIFA is doing with the World Cup. They have this new cup that they're coming up with that they're going to have 2 years between every single World Cup to kind of keep the international play at that competitive level. But it's pretty interesting. They're taking like the best teams from their countries, but it's not because your nationality, it's because the team is based out of Europe or the team's based out of or Brazil. So it's like it's kind of interesting. It's like basically like if you played for the New York Yankees, right? You'd represent the United States, but if you were contracted to play for the United States, you got to play for the United States.
Yeah, gotcha. You know, it's weird. When I was a kid, I mean, the Olympics was huge. You know, 68 was a little bit early for me in Mexico City, but 72 and then 76 and 80 and then 84. I mean, it was like everyone was really interested in the Olympics, but it just kind of, I don't know, maybe because they got too many sports, too many things.
I know interest is really fading in the United States, but there's a reason why NBC, the company that, you know, I just recently left, pays all that money for the rights. Like it obviously does really well around the world.
So. Around the world, it does. Okay, guys, you ready for our first trivia question on baseball numbers?
No.
Well, I'm going to do it anyway, despite you. Okay, here we go. The number 511 is a famous baseball number. Give me 2 reasons.
511.
511 is kind of a major important number in baseball. 511. All right. Okay. That's our trivia question. All right. I'm gonna. There's one that's supposed to be fairly obvious, and then there's one that's not as obvious. It's not as famous, but it just coincidentally happens to be the number 511. All right. That's our trivia question. I know Russell just loves these.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, the next two will be a little easier. You'll probably get them. All right. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com. The answer to this question. We're talking baseball numbers. The number 511 is a famous number in baseball, and give me 2 reasons for it. There's two separate 511 statistics. All right. Just stay with the Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with FP Santangelo Jr. and Russell Jackman. Gentlemen, the number 511 is a famous baseball number, or a famous number in baseball. See if you can give me 2 reasons why. First of all, do you know the obvious one?
No, I don't know either.
I'm sorry. Okay, then it's not so obvious. All right. Well, well, I'll give you the non-obvious one. That's how many home runs Mel Ott hit.
Okay.
That he finished off with that. Okay. But the main reason is because that's how many wins Cy Young had. And and you know, people talk about unbreakable records, you know, like DiMaggio's 41 game hitting streak. That I think will get broken. It was almost broken by Pete Rose and all that. But and I think, was it Paul Molitor or Robin Young? One of those guys. Oh, Paul Molitor almost broke it too. I mean, he came fairly close. But if you think about it, 511 wins. I mean, you got to be pitching for, you know, like Nolan Ryan was phenomenal, right? I mean, without stamina and all that. Can you imagine pitching? First of all, winning 25 games one time is like almost out of the ballpark, right? And can you do it for 20 consecutive years?
It will never happen.
Cy Young pitched complete no hitters with double headers.
Mm-hmm.
He missed double header games, and he did complete games.
Yeah, but it's funny, they didn't have as many baseball games back then. I mean, they didn't have 162 games. They did have, I think they did have 148, and then it went up to like 154. But yeah, but like you said, yeah, you had to pitch like every 2 days or something like that.
No, we just passed the anniversary of Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game too.
Yes, we did. Okay, now, Russ, it was interesting. You wanted to bring up something about Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I wanted to see if FP, who is the big pro gambling pundit of the show, if he's going to lay down, how much he's going to lay down on the next WrestleMania for, you know, whether Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns is going to be champion after the next WrestleMania. I think it's one of the most ridiculous ideas I've ever heard.
Hey, don't forget Kenji Shibuya.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So they're trying to legalize gambling with the WWE and trying to make it so you can bet on it, but that there's a lot of
staged,
there's a lot of foul play that could happen there, because we all know WWE is very real. Okay, so When
Well, as Russ likes to say, it's staged. It's not fake, but it's
No.
staged.
Trust me, I've done my research on this. Those guys really get hurt, okay? And they're doing real stunts, and that stuff is crazy to me. And the wear and tear on their bodies probably harder than any other sport there is. Okay, so like,
but apparently, what Vince McMahon wants to do is he wants to take the results of WrestleMania and put it in an envelope and put it in an empty mayonnaise jar and put it under Funk and Wagnall's porch. Do you get that? Do you get that reference?
I do. Yeah, he just wants to basically pick a number out of a hat.
Well, do you remember the amazing Kreskin from Johnny Carson?
No.
I kind of forgot about him. I remember Karnak, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, Karnak. I mean, when he would do Karnak, and every time before he would do Karnak, he would say, "This envelope has been sealed."
Yeah.
And put in an empty mayonnaise jar underneath Funk and Wagnall's porch. That was his.
Oh, I miss Johnny Carson. He was
his intro to the amazing Karnak. So it's. I mean, are we going to be betting on the Globetrotters against the Washington Generals next?
Yeah, I think
that's a little ridiculous.
The hardest part about that, though, is just having a business deal, right? And you have to show that you have confidence that enough people are going to bet on this, and that the winner is not going to get leaked, right? And a lot of these companies that have millions of dollars on the line per sporting event, I don't think that they're going to have enough confidence to make that deal with Vincent McMahon.
Would you bet on a WrestleMania?
No, I don't bet at all to begin with. I've never bet in my life. So.
Smart man.
But you're pro gambling. You are pro gambling.
Yes, I am, because it bring a lot of money to a place, a sector where people are underpaid to begin with. Like working in sports media, I know how much those guys are underpaid. Once it gets out how much money these people are making, right? Hopefully, a lot of the production people will jump board and get into the sports gambling companies to work in production for their companies, and they'll start overpaying people a little bit more.
But what about the people?
Like a startup situation in tech, right?
What about this?
Can we bet on Romeo and Juliet? Can we bet on Romeo and Juliet, like which Capulets and which Montagues are going to get stabbed first?
Yeah,
is that what we're going to have?
But here's the thing, though, is that. What does it do to a society when most of the people who are gambling can't afford it? I'm kind of throwing out that statistic. Tell me if I'm wrong.
So the average bet, and I've been informed by this, we had a huge seminar when I was at NBC Sports because they're ready for California to legalize gambling, which didn't work, by the way.
Good.
Didn't work at all. Wasn't even close. So they were very upset about that. A lot of media companies were very upset because the partnerships were going to be insanely lucrative.
Yeah.
The average bet is between $5 and $20.
Yeah.
Which is like people think like they're putting their mortgages down on a bet. That's not true.
Yeah.
The average bet's between $5 and $20. But then the question goes, and we would ask, well, how many $5 and $20 bets? Yeah. They wouldn't answer. It'd be like, well, between like 1 and 3, but we haven't really done the research on that. And I was like, oh, okay.
So, no, because it's easy. You could easily do $100 and just spread $5 amongst 20 different bets.
Right. Lottery tickets are only $1 each, or $5 or $10 each. But if you buy 100 of them, then that's you're gonna wind up.
Also, it detracts from instead of going to work, you're going to the track type attitude.
Yeah, I will tell Russ though, and I'll bring this up. Like on Bravada, you can bet on who's going to win the Bachelorette and who's going to win the Bachelor, who's going to win reality TV shows. And then you can, like in certain like really high profile TV shows, they'll allow you to bet who's going to be like the king of the North in Game of Thrones, right? Or who's going to be the king.
Yeah, but the guy who's writing the script, I mean, what's to stop him from doing a shill bet?
Or just telling his cousin.
Yeah.
Right. And apparently, like they still went through with it, right? Some of these betting companies did because it kind of generates enough
interest
that it's like they're paying for their advertising.
Gotcha.
Who's going to actually do it?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a lot of people you have to keep under wraps too.
Yeah.
Think about all the production folks, all the people who are work on the
Okay, so
I always wondered too. Sorry to interrupt. I always wondered too if it does leak online, if they can just like refund your bet. They just refund.
That's a good point.
Like here's our evidence that it leaked online. Therefore, you do not win the bet.
All right. When I was in my 20s, and this is still this phrase goes on. Who shot JR? So FP, that was before you were born, but the show called Dallas, there was this big thing Dallas became a very, very well-known show. It was very popular. And there's a scene where someone's hidden and shoots JR, the main character, played by Larry Hagman. For a whole season, you didn't know, and everybody was speculating who shot JR, who shot JR, you know, and so that would have been a good one to bet.
Yeah, but then later they had a whole season where they admitted it was just a dream.
No, so that was Bobby. No, hold on, that was Bobby, where his brother gets killed by a car accident, and so they write him off because I guess there was a dispute in the contract. And then they go a whole year without this character, and then they bring him back because I guess they figured they figured out the contract dispute, and suddenly he's in the shower and the wife comes in, and that's when they realize it's a whole dream. And it's like, okay, this is a little unrealistic, but
I know. So how can, you know, that's something too, is if you bet on something like that, and then the writers, you know, turn around and say, oh, wait a minute, no, that didn't really happen, and we're gonna. Do you have to refund the bet too? You know,
good point.
Like that
well, I think I told you guys back with when the Bears beat the Patriots back in the 85 season. So I think that it was 1986. You could bet on the coin flip. And at first, you know, the announcers said, "Oh, okay, it's tails," and everybody collected their tails bet. And then when they came back from commercial break, the announcer says, "You know what? I don't know why I said that. I made a mistake. It was heads." And then uproar, "Yay!" And so that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, you can do that. You can still bet on all those prop bets.
Mm-hmm.
All those crazy prop bets.
Whatever happened to cards and dice and roulette and I mean, I'd like people to gamble on things that were designed for gambling. And I'd like to watch my wrestling stuff without having to think about, you know, the over under and the. And by the way, the speaking of gambling, the Warriors and Milwaukee just played, and the over under for that was 240.5, and with overtime, do you know what the combined score was?
What?
250 something.
241.
Yeah, it's crazy how close.
The over-under was 240.5, and with overtime, it was 241.
Wow.
So, you know, it amazes me, like, how they're able to come up with some of these over-unders and how.
Yeah, because I mean that really that game I watched it. That was I don't think that was fixed.
You know? Well, like it's really interesting. If you guys want to look into it, I know we got to go soon into a commercial break, but they take the best talent around all leagues, okay? All the front office people, the guys that went to MIT that invent these algorithms, right? Yeah. And they pay them double, sometimes triple of what, say, the New York Yankees would pay them in their front office, right? And then Vegas absorbs them, so that way they help set these overs and unders.
All right, guys. We had second trivia question. 714 is a famous number in baseball. Why? Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with FP Santangelo Jr. and Russell Jackman. Our second trivia question, the number 714 is a famous number in baseball. Russell, you know that answer, and so does FP.
Yeah, it's the Barry Bonds home run number.
No. FP.
Do it. It's Hank Aaron.
No.
Oh, I thought. Oh, no. Is it Babe Ruth?
Babe Ruth's number, yeah.
Oh, Babe Ruth.
Yeah, but so when Hank Aaron hit 715, then he beat it.
Sorry, we had 3 strikes. We hit it on the third.
Yeah, that's right. Hey guys, John Morant. He's been away from the Grizzlies for 10 days as of today. We're recording, and he's entering a counseling program for who knows how long. Supposedly, in about 3 or 4 days, he's going to come back. Do you think this is going to be a wake-up call to get him to turn around? I mean, I think something like this is so serious, the way that they handled it, rather than just like, let's just blow it off. He's just a kid. because there's been more than one incident. I kind of get the feeling this is really going to turn him around. I don't know what the counseling program is like, but what do you guys think?
I hope so. Like that's one of those things that like I'm glad he's taking action and he's not just being a stubborn kid and like I can figure this out of myself. It seems like he's trying to get some good support underneath him to make some good decisions in the future.
Yeah.
But this whole situation's it's sad, but you know, hopefully some people can learn lessons from it. Like it could be a positive story for people because this is like this isn't just like some like stud, you know, that's really good in basketball. This is like potentially the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Talking about here. This guy is that talented and that good. So I'm just hoping that he figures it out and it's a good story for people moving forward.
I hope he would talk to guys like Michael Jordan. Now Jordan had his gambling problems and you know he had some issues, but not like this. I mean, for the most part, kept his nose.
Yeah, he wasn't waving guns around. He wasn't getting in fights with kids. It seems to me like John Morant's got some anger issues, right? Because a lot of the things stem from confrontations, right?
And the thing is, though, he didn't. If I remember correctly, didn't he grow up in somewhat of the suburbs?
Yeah, and maybe that's kind of getting to him too. Maybe I wouldn't know this because you know I'm a white guy that grew up in the suburbs myself, right? But I don't have like. I'm Italian. I don't have Italians telling me that I'm not really Italian because I grew up in California, right? So maybe there's that whole aspect where he's playing around people that grew up in other circumstances and they're telling them that he's a fake, you know, African-American that didn't grow up around the culture and all that stuff. And maybe that's he's got to overcompensate. So
that's terrible. I mean, so what? We're going to now tell white people who grew up in Louisiana, oh, you're not really white because only black people live in Louisiana. I mean, come on.
Well, again, it's an immaturity thing, right? And most people outgrow that. I mean, there's one point in high school or in middle school where we were trying to find our identity and we're trying to figure out who we are, that we're like, we wanted to belong to a group, right? And maybe he just never went through that process because he was always a superstar. Right. And maybe never belonged.
Listen, you know, I don't know if Russell grew up like this, but even though I grew up, you know, here in it was at the time, it was kind of middle, maybe a little bit upper middle class in Marin. Now it's upper class. Right. But there were times when I had some anti-Semitic stuff thrown at me. And I don't know, Russell, did you have that ever when you're growing up?
No, because the identity really isn't that strong. You know, people don't like walk around. You don't see Orthodox Jews walking around like you do in New York City. You know, there aren't neighborhoods that you would consider Jewish neighborhoods in Marin County. It's, you know, most people don't go to synagogue. Most people aren't very open with their religion anyway, you know, whether it's Catholicism or whether it's Judaism or, you know, Hindus or Muslims. They just, everybody kind of keeps their religion to themselves here in Marin. So I don't think it was that big of a deal. I think the thing with John Morant is that the NBA is kind of like thankful that this sort of is happening at the right time because it's there's not that much going on in, you know, there's enough distractions going on that we'll all collectively move on from it pretty quickly. I mean, we're all now, you know, a Twitter about you know, Garoppolo changing teams and where's Aaron Rodgers going to go? And
also, he got back. I mean, he didn't you know, he didn't rape any women.
Nobody got hurt. Nobody really got hurt.
Nobody really got hurt. Yeah, it's an image. It's more of an image, and it was illegal.
So it's just the kind of thing. I think it's one of those blowover kind of things that just the collective consciousness of sports. And right now, there's just so many things happening with the NCAA tournament happening and the World Baseball Classic. We're just gonna like bury it and move on.
As fans, we want him to come back because it's almost like he's depriving us of watching his talent. You know, how dare he?
I don't mind him as a Warriors fan. I don't mind him taking more time off.
Actually, let's move on. So Jimmy G, no more Jimmy G.
It's
not like he died.
No, no, but can you imagine? He signs a 3-year, $67 million,
that's ridiculous.
With $45 million guaranteed.
Raiders are going to regret that.
They are going to regret that.
So, guys, let me tell you why that's kind of a sneaky good deal. Okay. And first and foremost, I thought it was interesting how to all the moves yesterday that happened on the first day of free agent. It's the new day that's the start of the season was on March 13th. Okay. That's when you can make all these deals. That's why they all happened at once on a Monday afternoon, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
But out of all the major deals that happened that will really influence teams, this one was the sexiest. And there's just something about Jimmy Garoppolo that just everybody just gravitates towards, right?
Well, apparently he's a good
like
teammate, good looking, you know.
He's a really good looking guy, but he's like, he's been hurt a bunch. He hasn't been really in the news cycle that much, but it's just something about this guy. He goes to the Raiders, right? 30 million guaranteed off the bat, and everything else is incentive laden, which is, he could still make that 72 million pretty easy. But if you look at the market for QBs, like look at what the New York Giants just paid for Daniel Jones, right? And you look around the league and these guys are just getting gaudy money right now.
Yeah.
So this is like a perfect 3-year transition window to maybe draft that rookie QB that Jimmy Garoppolo can help, again, be the mentor towards like he was in San Francisco. But he's going back with Josh McDaniels, his old OC from the New England Patriots, right? They're getting tons of Patriot talent right now, which is really funny, right?
Yeah.
If you look at like they're getting wide receivers, they're getting a lot of defensive backs and all these different things from previous Patriot teams. So it looks like they have a plan installed and they could be effective, but Jimmy Garoppolo knows how to win games, right? At the end of the day. And he's really good at getting the ball to his playmakers for the most part, as we've seen, right? It's not going to be like a 15-yard pass downfield. He's not going to throw guys open, but he knows how to dump the ball off. And maybe that's just what the Raiders want to do.
It's interesting too, because you never see him angry. I mean, he's always got he's pretty easygoing. And
how can he be angry with that face?
I know, but I mean, it's not like he might have is like if a play goes bad or something like that. He just kind of. I'm not saying he doesn't care, but it's like he always seemed to have like a good attitude. And I think that resonated. And then the 49ers signed Sam Darnold to a 1-year deal.
Yeah, sneaky contract.
Yeah. I think that's pretty smart. I mean, he's a decent quarterback.
They need an insurance policy in case Brock Purdy can't come back.
Yeah, I don't know how large it was, though. I didn't see how much he's getting paid. Do you guys see that?
It wasn't that much. I think it was kind of backup money, but backups are even getting like 2-year, $12 million deals, which is awesome.
Hey, Bruss, you should be a backup quarterback.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I can throw with my feet, I guess. I'm not.
Okay, hey guys, I'm gonna move on. Real quickly here. Bud Grant, the old Vikings coach, died at age 95, and if you remember him, he always wore short sleeves. Even at 88 years old, it was 25 degrees or 25 below zero or something. He comes out in short sleeves. And so I know John Vella, who was an offensive guard for the Raiders. And he was traded from the Raiders to the Vikings toward the end of his career. And he told me a story of how in practice, they would play, they practice in Minnesota. This is before the Dome. And they would, it doesn't matter what time of year. I mean, it's freezing out there. And so John is wearing gloves. And the offensive coordinator comes over to him and he goes, take those gloves off. He says, why? He goes, Bud doesn't allow anybody to wear gloves. He goes, it's freaking practice. It's like 12 degrees outside, I don't want to get hurt. And he goes, no, you got to take the gloves off. And so that was his last year. And he said, forget this, I'm toward the end of my career anyway. But Bud was an old, he was from the old school. And apparently he was a very good player back in like the 40s or something. But
how about the inventor of the Fosbury flop died?
Oh, did he really?
Oh
yeah, he just died yesterday.
Oh, I missed that. Shoot.
Yeah, the Fosbury flop. That was that changed the whole world of high jumping.
Yeah, because he used to do the roll, right? He always used to be the forward roll.
Right.
And but in fact, when I was in junior high, that's when they taught us the Fosbury flop, and it seemed to work out pretty well.
Yeah, probably the best name for a move in sports, if you ask me.
That's true. That's true. I think a second contender though is Rope-a-Dope. That's really good.
But not named after anyone, unless the guy's named Rope or the guy's named Dope. But
and it's funny, you know what? I was never a Muhammad Ali fan.
I was.
Rumble in the Jungle, with George Foreman.
Yeah.
I watched some movie on it, and it was very interesting because George, the thing was like, it was 100 degrees with 100-degree humidity. George just didn't train well.
There's going to be a George Foreman movie coming up.
Oh,
Yes, I want to see that. I really want to see that. And because I loved watching George Foreman and Ken
He was
Norton and all
something
those
else.
guys.
I owned a lot of his grills.
Yeah.
They
Are
were
they
awesome
good?
in college.
Are they?
Saved my life.
Really? It's like when Joe DiMaggio did it was Mr. Coffee,
Yes.
But that actually saved George quite a lot because he wasn't too good with his money, in the years.
Didn't he have like a whole bunch of kids and he named him George Foreman too?
Yeah, and that way, and I think the reason is so that when he said, "Hey George, take out the garbage," at least one of them would do it.
Yeah, that's
Even his daughter's named George.
Yeah, or Georgina or something like that, right? I mean, how do you do that? George 1, George 2. I mean,
I just call it Uno, Dos, Tres.
Yeah. George with a mole on his head,
Yeah.
George with a J.
George with a J. All right, guys, you ready for our third trivia question here? All right, Here we go. We're talking famous baseball numbers. All right, 2,632 is also a famous baseball number or a number.
Okay, I think I finally got that one.
You think you got this one? Why
Yes.
is that FP's kind of looking at me like a deer in headlights, but do you know this one?
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay, so 2,632 is also a famous number. Why? Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. We're going to have some thoughts for the day, which are kind of funny. You'll like these. All right, stay with us. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with FB Santangelo Jr. and Russell Jackman. And Russell thinks he knows the answer to this. The number 2,632 is also a famous number in baseball. Why?
Back in 1991, I had the privilege of going to see Cal Ripken play at the old Memorial Auditorium and the Memorial Stadium. So I got to see one of the 2,632 games that he played consecutively live, and he hit a home run. So I always have that memory.
Ding, 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 ding. That is correct. Yeah, in fact, I still remember. It was pretty. My wife doesn't really like baseball, but when that came on TV, the idea that he was going to be breaking it, and then as soon as he did,
that'll never be broken. That is truly one of the most unassailable sports records. Are you kidding me? Like the most the most that anyone has played now is like 170 games in a row or something.
I mean that one could be a tough one.
No,
sure. But I don't think it's unbreakable.
I think it is. I think it is. Guys get too many games off. I mean, guys are complaining about playing 150 games in a season, let alone 162. And we've had a couple of labor shortages, lockouts and stuff like that make even, that happening now. It's going to take 30 years for somebody to even hit that number.
Wait a minute, does that count if there's a baseball strike or something? Does that break the streak?
It just cuts the number of games, right?
Yeah. Well, true.
In a row.
On a little bit.
Whit Merrifield had like 600 games. He's the one with the current active record right now.
600 games. 600 games. So he's only got to play another 2,000 games in a row.
Yeah.
Well, that's only another, 14 years or something. All right. Well, to me, the thing that's amazing is the fact that Ripken was a third baseman and then a shortstop. I mean, those are. I mean, if you're a first baseman, I kind of get it. Okay, here we go.
Talk about all the crazy injuries.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay, you guys ready? Here's our thoughts for the day. So my friends and I started a band called 999MB. We still haven't gotten a
gig yet.
There you go. Okay.
I've heard that one.
You've heard that one. Okay, and you got to stop looking at these trivia ones from me. Okay, and the best gift is a broken drum. Nobody can beat that. Okay, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We'll be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Adios.
So long.